lately I felt like really like a rush of nervous anxiousness before I record these episodes. And I don't know why, but I will say there's like a part of me that it feels really fun. It feels really fun that I am taking it so seriously that it makes me feel something physically. You know what I mean? So all of that to say, that's because of you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the episodes. Thank you so much for telling me that you're listening to the episodes. Thank you so much for like being a part of this journey with me and doing things differently and yeah, thinking things differently and developing perspective and I love you guys so much. So thank you for making this really fun for me and I vow to you that I will continue to show up to the best of my ability and be truthful and honest and give you everything that I've got. So with that being said, I'm a little nervous about today's episode because I've never once recorded my voice saying any of these things, never once in my life. But I did recently post a carousel on this. So that was kind of like my warm up. I knew that I wanted to record a podcast on this. So I like put it into a carousel and I was like, let's see how this feels for me. As you know, if you've been listening to the show, I I really see content as this self-discovery tool. I really see it as a document of my own evolution and my own, whether that's personal or professional. And so I want to take the opportunity to kind of, test my evolution, test my growth here. And this is going to be kind of different than anything that I've ever brought forward. And I do want to say this episode is going to hopefully give you perspective, hopefully make you think a little bit differently about content. However, I want to prioritize that this is not, I'm going to be talking about the Bible, okay? But this is not a Bible study. I want you to know that. And some of you are listening to this and you're like, I love the Bible. And some of you are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I don't, that's not part of my life. And either way, it's okay. It's welcome here. This is also not like this is not like a content strategy type episode. However, this will absolutely change the way that you show up in your content 100%. Um, I would say that this is actually the biggest window, the biggest glimpse into the actual framework that I run my content through in my life. And nobody taught me this. Nobody, like, this is all self taught. This is all self discovered. And I will say that this all came about when through pain, like through times that I've been in pain. And I'm very open about the fact that the last couple of years for me have been extremely painful personally. And I felt like even during that pain, I have an amazing husband. He's extremely supportive. He is my rock. Like I can't even describe the type of person that he is. I feel like I I can't even describe his strength and his who he is at his core has changed my entire life for sure. I've made a really good decision marrying him. And I also have an older sister that would do anything for me. She would take a bullet for me. And the love between her and I is unmatched. And I have parents that my parents are separated, so I have step parents and I have biological parents. And if I needed anything, any of them would drop everything to be there for me. I know that. And then I have friends that show up for me as if they're showing up for family. And so I have a very good circle. I have a very strong circle of people. And even with all of that, and as much as I'm grateful for all of that, there's times when you're in personal pain that you feel this immense loneliness that can't be, it's like an itch that can't be scratched, even by people who you know for a fact love you with their entire heart. It's a loneliness that can't be um like resolved by people, by humans. And so there's like this void that I have felt. And I don't know if you guys have felt this in the pain that you've experienced in life, but it's like this void of like, oh, there's just this, it's this weird, achy loneliness. And because of that, it feels like, where do I turn in these moments of this pain? Where do I look? Where do I go to fill this void? And I'm not a person that has vices. Like I have the opposite of an addictive personality. I have a very hard time getting addicted to things. Like the only thing I'm addicted to is black coffee. Truly. Like most of the time, this is so funny. Actually, I can't believe I'm admitting this, but there was a time in college where I really wanted to like smoke cigarettes. That's disgusting. Okay. You can judge me if you want to, but I thought that was cool. Like I was like, I want to smoke cigarettes. And I would go and I would buy like these long, skinny cigarettes and I would try to smoke them because I was like, this would be really cool. Like I would look cool. You guys, obviously I've grown up. Okay. So I'm here to admit all the flaws. It's not a big deal, but I could not for the life of me get addicted to the nicotine. Like I thought it was I was repelled by it. I could not. And there's nothing like there's not a lot of addiction in me, which I'm very grateful for. It's an amazing blessing. But I have my other shit, okay? I have other issues. That's just not one of them. So when it comes to filling this void, I knew that it wasn't going to come from some sort of substance or some sort of vice. And so I did what felt like something that I've avoided for pretty much my entire life, and that was turning to God. And I have reasons as to why I've never been an atheist. Like I've never not believed in God. I've always believed in something bigger than me, bigger than us. But I've had very interesting and almost traumatizing experiences in churches in Catholicism. I went to Catholic school for a few years, and I'm also very open about the fact that my parents separated when I was 2, and also around that time my dad came out as gay. And so when the kids that I was in school with learned that I had a gay dad, the bullying was intense. Like it was extremely intense. And I would sit in church. I would sit next to these kids in church and I would be like, church isn't working on you. Like this isn't like, and there was other things that went down in that realm of quote unquote religion, where for the longest time even into my adulthood, I had a really hard time with opening my heart to that, to religion in general. And I'll be open and honest about that. But when you're in pain, when you're going through hardship, it's like I had to turn to God because there was nothing else to turn to. And now I feel like I have this open relationship with God, whatever you want to call it. I used to not even be able to say God. So I understand if this makes someone who's listening to this feel some type of way. I used to not be able to say God, and I would have to say the universe, or I would have to say source. And I still use those things. And I again, like there's so many thoughts that I have on this. And that's what this episode is. I'm not trying to change your mind about anything. I'm going to get to the point. We're going to get to the point here about how this ties into content. This is not me trying to recruit you to my belief. This is not me trying to change your belief. This is me simply documenting what has changed me from a visceral level. And again, going through what I've been through in the last couple of years, some of it I've shared publicly, some of it I've kept very private. But in it's like almost like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm digressing a lot here, but I look back on some of this pain, and some of the pain I'm very much still in the thick of. And I see it as like, oh, that had to happen. Like, oh, this is happening. I mean, I don't know how to say this, but and I don't want to say this insensitively, but I know that all of this is happening for me as much as it has torn me to shreds, you guys. Like it's torn me to shreds, but I'm like, there's this level of gratitude that has been inside of me that I did not put there. I know that my mind did not put this gratitude inside of my soul, inside of my heart. So it had to have been put there by something bigger than me. That is what I feel, and I can feel it. And I mean, yeah, even the people who love me the most, my husband, my sister, my parents, my friends, like I don't want to say it's not enough because that's not what it is. I think a lot of people don't even have the level of love that I experience. So it is enough, but it's a different sort of love that I was yearning for. And I don't know how to explain this. Some of you are going to understand it. Some of you are not going to understand it. And either way, I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, I have chosen to get very close to God. And still to this day, I'm not saying never, but like right now, I do not claim a religion. I'm very fascinated with studying all different types of religions. I've studied a lot. You should know about me that I read like a fiend. I'm always reading. I'm always listening to something. Like I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. I read physical books. I'm a learner. I'm a forever learner. I'm obsessed with learning. And so I find it very fascinating to learn about different religions. However, I don't claim a religion myself, and I don't go to church. And again, I'm not saying that if you do those things that you're wrong or weird at all. Like I actually respect anyone who has any sort of faith. That is what I respect. If you believe in something, I respect you. And I don't think that you have to do it a certain way. I think you do it the way that feels good to you. Like the way that you feel connected is the right way. So for me, I currently don't go to church. I talk to God. I feel God. I sleep with a Bible on my nightstand because I I was gonna say I was gonna literally say I fuck with the Bible, and then I'm like, probably shouldn't say the F word with Bible in the same sentence. So reroute. But like I find the Bible extremely insightful, like extremely. And I know that that's not new news to a lot of people. Like, yeah, duh, it's the Bible. But man, the lessons in there, the metaphors, the beautiful, like the scripture, it's just like it's insane. There's so many things about it that have blown my mind. And I've become genuinely curious about it. Like I will just open up a page and I'll read and then I'll ask myself questions about what I've read. And anyway, all of that to say, I have learned that for me personally, God has shown up for me in very hard times and very low times. And then I realized, oh, that's not just when God shows up. God shows up for me everywhere, like, and including my content, which is a revelation that I've had that has actually strengthened my content times a million, is looking at my content as, oh, this is a full extension of me. And if God is a part of me, then God is a part of my content because this is an extension of both of us. And it's also shown up, God has shown up in the way that I lead, in the way that I coach, in the way that I connect with clients, in the way that I create curriculum and record trainings. And every single principle that I operate from, God is there. And so that is what this episode is going to be. And it might be a little bit longer because I did not expect to just ramble on for that long. But I feel like this is I needed to lay down the context of what we're about to get into. And so if this is not for you, I totally understand that. Like you are not forced into listening to me at all. But if you're like, if there's even an ounce of you that's like, I find this a little interesting, I want to hear what she has to say, then that's all we need. You just need curiosity is the best thing that you could ever have. So if you are a little bit curious, that's all that this is. This is not, again, just to set the scene straight. I am not here to try to convince you of anything or change your mind of anything or push an agenda on you. I'm here to explain what has taken place in my heart and in my mind and in my soul. And so this episode is basically, I don't want this to be like, here's what the Bible says. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying, here is what the Bible has woken me up to and taught me, and how it has changed everything that I do and think. And also it has validated some of the things that I do and some of the ways that I think. It has made me realize like, oh, I'm on the right track. And I want you to feel those things too, if you're open to it. So again, this is not, I'm not prescribing you this. This is not a prescription. I am telling you, anyone out there who's listening to this with an open mind, that this is going to be an interesting episode. I'm not requiring you or suggesting that you open a Bible. I'm not suggesting that you adopt a certain faith. I am sharing what my spiritual relationship has produced in my body of work. And the principles that have emerged from all of that is not exclusively religious. It is actually instead what it is. It's deeply human. I say this a lot, like we are in life school, we are in earth school, and every single thing that we do is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to extract a lesson. And when we think about like learning and extracting lessons, like there are principles as to where these lessons derive from. And that's what this episode is. And so these principles that come from the Bible have made things make sense to me on a level that I cannot articulate. Okay. So when we talk about like content taking off and like feeling real and translating who you are in real life to who you are in your content and in your social media, and to become more trustworthy in front of your audience and to make your audience feel seen, like all of those things, you can find all of these principles also in the Bible, and they're actually named very clearly and completely, and they were obviously created and written long before social media and the internet existed, which is fascinating. So this is kind of meta, but it's a truth that if you've been treating content creation like marketing, for example, and that's all you see it as, like content creation is marketing, then I would say you've been trying to solve the wrong problem. And this, again, this is my contrarian thinking coming out. This is my stance. You are very welcome to disagree with me. I open a debate. That's totally fine. I don't need everybody to nod their head and agree with me. But the people who hear this, and it's not even about agreeing or disagreeing. That's not what this is about. The people who hear this and take it with them, I hope that it forever impacts the way that you show up in the best way possible. Content is a character problem. And character, both biblically and otherwise, character is built from the inside out. Okay. So, in this episode, I'm going to go through 10 principles. Again, this might be a longer one. So, maybe you need to chunk this up or take me on your hot girl walk. Let's go in nature. Like, my goodness, go touch some grass and shake your ass. But this is these are the 10 principles. It is an asset. It is a responsibility, and you're going to get 10 things. So please stay for all 10, and let's see how this goes. And so if you are listening to this, and you feel like whatever the scene that I just set for you, the context that I just described, earned your trust enough, then I ask you to commit to this journey with me throughout these 10 principles. I will also say each of these principles, I didn't necessarily write them out in order, but I will say that they all build on each other rather than standing alone. So they're kind of principles that work hand in hand versus just being like, oh, let me take from here and let me take from here. They all matter. And then there's also a bridge between every single principle that would create the forward motion that you're looking for. Like I know you want visibility, you want to make a difference, you want to change the world. Like, you're not in this to play a small, cute little side hustle game. You want your presence to be extremely powerful on social media in the best way. You literally want to, create a legacy, leave your mark, and be really proud of what you do here and how you show up. And that is what I actually promise that this episode will help you solidify. All right, let's see. I am going to pull up my notes here so that I can read what I wrote down. Let me just pull these up here. Okay. So, sorry about that. Maybe I need to edit this out. Okay. So, before we get into the 10 principles, one foundational idea that everything else builds upon or rests on is the fact that the Bible itself teaches us that we are made in the image of God. That's from Genesis. And so what that means for content creation specifically is what I believe with my whole heart is, and again, from the Bible, your personality, your perspective and wisdom, your voice, like your literal, the sound of your voice and your internal voice, those things are not designed to you specifically by an accident. They are intentional design. And content creation, when we think about that, is actually rooted in that design, and that becomes stewardship, responsibility. Okay. So what we choose to create, what we choose to express, and what we choose to post is a responsibility. And I truly see it that way. And the moment that I decided to see it that way, my stage got bigger, like my audience grew and the people paying attention grew. And it was an internal shift that no one from the outside looking in would realize happened. But that is the result of taking this so seriously that I'm treating it as a responsibility. And that right there is the lens of everything that I'm about to walk you through. That's the lens that everything lives through. So there's 10 principles. Let's dive in. Principle number 1. I would would call this prioritizing authenticity. And I know the word authenticity is thrown around a lot, but it's very important. So this comes from the Proverbs. I'm not trained religiously, so I might butcher some of these things, but hopefully you can understand. And honestly, where it comes from in the Bible is not the point of the show anyway. So prioritize authenticity. The Proverbs 24:26 would state, an honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. So what that means is raw truth actually moves people. So if you want to move people on social media, you have to show up with your raw truth. And I'm not just saying speak the truth. I'm saying show up as who you actually are, because not only are you going to move people, you're going to move yourself. So there's been many times where I've worked with clients and we've tried to not tried, we've crafted a post that is extremely vulnerable and it's very truthful. And oftentimes, I've said this before, like when I'm working with clients, there's a lot of tears, like there's a lot of crying. And that's not a flex of mine. Like I'm not saying like, oh, I'm big and bad and I make people cry. I actually see crying as it's cathartic. So as you are creating a post that is vulnerable and I start to see someone crying through creating it, I'm realizing like, oh, they're feeling those feelings all over again. Like they're in the moment, whether that is pain that they're feeling or joy that they're feeling, they are feeling. So when we think about showing up with raw truth and moving other people, when you are moved yourself by your own content, that is the point. Like when you show up as you actually are, whether that is flawed, evolving, real, and on top of the world, whatever it may be, people actually recognize themselves in you because of the raw truth. And most importantly, you recognize yourself in your own content. That is an unmatched pride. It is like you feel this immense pride. You feel so proud of what you're creating when you actually recognize yourself so much in your content that it moves you to goosebumps or laughing even or crying, like whatever it may be. The gap between who you are in the room physically, like if your best friend knows you or your partner knows you, the gap between that version of you and then who you pretend to be online, that's where credibility and true visibility could potentially die if there's a gap. So biblical authenticity would mean that you are being you in your actual form, not the version that you think people want from you. And that's tough. You have to be very aware. You have to check in with yourself. Like, am I doing this to appease an assumption of what I think people want from me? Or am I doing this because this is who I actually am? All right. Now, where it gets a little bit deeper, because authenticity without personal identity, which I call this icon identity in my world. This is what I teach you inside of the Evolution Content Membership. We walk through your icon identity. But authenticity without the icon identity it turns into a mess. It's chaos, which brings me into principle number 2. Principle number 2, I would say, states identity first, strategy second. Again, this is all in correlation to creating content. So if these are the biblical principles that lead the way that you create content, that's what I'm talking to. So identity first, strategy second. And when I say strategy, I'm talking about how many times a week you should post, or what your hook should be, or the length of time that your videos should be, or whatever. Like the entire physical design is strategy. Okay. This is one that I wish other people could teach us. like I wish someone could have handed this to me, but also I don't, because this is one that it's a journey that we all have to figure out on our own. And it's actually really enjoyable. Like it's really fun when you're open to it to figure this out, but you can't sit behind a Google Doc. You can't sit behind wherever, like your notes app in your phone, and try to plan this. You actually have to move through it. And so I think a lot of people, that's scary. That's terrifying. So a lot of people refuse to do that. So when it comes to identity first, strategy second, the Proverbs, 23:7 states, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Your brand on social media, in your content, will not be built on any sort of mechanics, any sort of external tactics. It will not be built because the algorithm falls in love with you. It will not be built because you are really good at hooks or going viral or whatever, or following what's trending even, or choosing putting on the best outfits, like having the best camera angles. That's not what your brand is going to be built on. Trust me here. It is going to be built. This is going to get a little deep. Your brand is going to be built on who you believe you are. Who do you believe that you are? Now, if you have a belief about yourself that is poor, like you don't believe you are an icon, you don't believe you are meant to be a big deal, your brand is built on that. If you are like, no, I'm here to like stir some things up in the best way possible. I'm here to change the world. I'm here to like I really want to help solve this problem and I believe I'm capable of doing that, then your brand will be built on that. And that is some powerful ish right there. If you don't know your identity, there's no strategy, there's no sort of mechanics on content that will ever save you, period. The Bible is clear when it says, when it's, in the writing, your internal reality shapes your external reality. Your internal reality shapes your external reality. Now, this doesn't mean that you're always going to think your ish doesn't stink. That doesn't mean that. We all know that this is also a very human experience in life school. We have our downs. It's designed to be that way. We're supposed to feel it all and everything in between. However, your internal reality is going to shape your external reality. And when you think about the strategy, that is actually just the public broadcast of what you already know about yourself. So this is why content is fascinating, because when you are creating content, you are basically putting on a stage, you are publicly broadcasting what you already know about yourself. And when we look at it to that extreme, you're going to consume content differently actually because of all of this. But once you know who you are, and then you learn the skills to be honest about that and put it into words, put it into your content and translate that, then we can talk about the third principle, which asks you what you're going to do with that. Because when you are honest, you're going to get visibility. Okay. You are going to. It just works that way. But that's why the work is actually not, how do I get visibility? The work is, how do I get to know myself better? And when you get there, we can talk about the next principle, because it's going to ask of you, like, okay, now you have visibility. What's your plan? What are you going to do with it? Because it's not actually yours to use however you want. And it's definitely not there to serve your ego. The visibility is not there to make you feel worthy finally. In fact, it's the opposite. When the moment that you start to feel more worthy, visibility will become way more intense, into the level of that you cannot even imagine. So the third principle is, I love these two words together, radical responsibility. I love these. Like, I say this all the time in my vernacular. Is that the right? In my lingo, like radical responsibility over everything in your life, not even just content, like radical responsibility over your health, radical responsibility over your relationships, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the principle that I quite literally think about every single time I'm posting something, every single time. I would say radical responsibility in the Bible comes from Luke 12:48, which would state, to whom much is given, much will be required. To whom much is given, much will be required. That is fascinating, because we always think that, oh, if I have more money, if I have more visibility, if I have more this, if I have more that, it'll be easier. Where I would argue there might be a lot of things that become easier because you have those things, but it does increase your responsibility. And your audience, I say this with my full mother freaking chest, your audience is not your asset to exploit. It is your responsibility. And even if you have a small audience, like let's say you have, 500 followers, that's not even small. Imagine 500 people in your house. Like 500 people could not fit in my house, by the way. But even 500 people, this is stewardship. And you are accountable for how you use it. The problem here is like no one's really holding you accountable, so you have to hold yourself accountable. So there's so many questions that we could add here, but are you creating content to build people up in your audience, or are you tearing them down? And sometimes these things are sneaky. Like, for example, I created, this must have been like 2 months ago or a month ago, I can't really remember, but I created a post where I was like, it's a chit chat video, so it's short form. And I'm talking to the screen and I'm literally saying, like, you don't have haters. Why do you think you have haters? Like, you have people that are disagreeing with you in your content, in your comments. Like, you don't have haters. Like, get over yourself almost. And like, I am going to tell you right now, when I created that, I did believe that was a powerful post. I did believe it was doing good. But when I watched it back, because again, I'm an athlete by trade. Like I played college basketball. So watching film back is part of my repertoire. Like, it's what I do. And so when I watched that back a couple weeks later, I was disgusted by myself. And I'm like, who am I even talking to? Like, why am I talking like that? Why am I Why am I being so condescending almost? And so I was like, you know what? I need to recreate this post in the way that like proves my stewardship, proves that I believe I'm responsible. So I flipped the entire narrative, and I created a post that was more like, um, here's how to actually handle haters and disagreements. Like, here's how you actually handle this. And so I was speaking to a more empowered person. Like, instead of trying to tear them down and be like, you don't have haters, get over it. I flipped the script and I said, you might have haters and it's going to hurt your feelings. And here's how to handle it. And that video went mega viral. I'm talking like instantly too. And again, it's just because I was trying to refine. Again, I'm all about the evolution. I'm also all about, like, I made a mistake a little bit. I improved. I saw the flaw there. And I asked myself, like, am I leading them toward truth or am I leading them toward themselves? So again, stewardship means that your content serves them, not just like your metrics or your revenue, but it serves them in your audience. And the only way that anyone actually, the only way to actually serve people, the only way to know what people need and need from you is through the fourth principle. So let's get to the fourth principle, which is, I would say, most people have the least patience for this one, creating it. Most people have the least patience to create this. And this is principle number 4, which is wisdom is where it's at. Wisdom is where it's at. This is the antidote to everything loud, everything reactive that social media rewards in the short term. So wisdom is where it's at would come from Proverbs 1:5. Let the wise listen and add to their learning. That's so important. I need to say it again. Let the wise listen and add to their learning. There is a lot of noise in our world right now. Always, actually, like not even just right now, always. It is noisy, it is loud, it is chaotic, it is messy. But when we think about the wisdom that comes from the Bible, it's quiet. It's a bit more soft. It's very intentional. And it's actually grounded in observation of actual reality. It's not, the Bible was not written by creating words that think, oh, this sounds good. Oh, this will get attention. Oh, this will go viral. So that means your most powerful content is not going to be like, oh, I know this one's going to pop off. I know this one's going to go, this is my biggest and bestest idea. This is the best trend that I could follow and plug myself into. I'm not saying don't do those things, but I'm telling you, your most powerful content isn't going to come from that. Instead, your most powerful content is actually the thought in your mind and in your heart that you have spent months processing before you felt like you could articulate it, before you felt you could put words to it, to share it. And that's because wisdom requires patience, and it requires introspection, and it requires reflection, and it requires curiosity. And when we talk about patience and content, I would say that requires something that the algorithm is actively actually punishing you for. And it's honesty about what you don't know. So we think that the algorithm is going to pick us up because we are experts, because we're really good at creating content. Whereas I'm telling you, be honest about what you don't know. And that's what principle number 5 is all about. So principle number 5 is honesty over calculated curation. We can actually feel when someone's calculated and has like this hidden agenda, or is like really, the only word I can think of is like trying to perform. And so this one hits different when you think about how much of what you see online is technically true, but not actually honest. It's true, but it's not honest. There's a difference. So when I say honesty over calculated curation, that's going to come from oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this, Ephesians, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, 4:25, which states, therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor. Goodness. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor. Curation, when I talk about calculated curation, that is like having selective truth. It's where you pick and choose. Like, I'm going to be selective about some truth. I'm going to be selective about some honesty. That is not the same as truth. The Bible commands truth telling, which includes, let me just state this. I said this in the beginning. I'm not just talking about spitting truth from your mouth. I'm talking about hard truths about yourself. What you don't know, where you've been wrong, how you're still figuring it out, where you don't have all the answers, where you contradict yourself sometimes. Your willingness to be wrong is your strongest credibility. And again, this is beyond content. This is, we just celebrated our 3rd year in marriage. And I would say one of the biggest lessons, I would actually have to sit and think about this, but one of the biggest lessons that I've extracted from 3 years of marriage, coming from a woman who, like, if you were to ask me what I've achieved in this lifetime, part of my answer would be marriage. I'm so proud of us for what we've created in our love and in our partnership. One thing that I would say is one of my biggest learning lessons is it's never about being wrong or right, ever. Like, that's never the point. So willing to be wrong, actually, when you have that thought process, it's easier to accept that you might be wrong when it's not, that's never the end game, is being right or wrong. But I've also learned that my willingness to be wrong in my relationship, my willingness to be wrong in my content, in my leadership, et cetera, has been my strongest credibility. And your willingness to add to that, to change your mind, that will be your strongest evolution. So instead of trying to stay stubborn or like, well, I said this before, I need to stick to it because what are people going to think? You are what's stunting your evolution. You are stunting your growth with that. So the place where honesty is most powerful, is not in your hot takes. It's not your opinions. Period. The place where honesty is most powerful is in your stories, which is going to lead us directly into principle number 6. And I would say, from my perspective, I think the Bible is entirely built on number 6, which is the power of testimony. So if you have been wondering as you're listening to these episodes and listening to my content, why documenting your life feels more powerful than anything you could educate people on, this is why. And again, this is one of the, when I educate you inside of the Evolution Content Membership on the core 4, which is the 4 types of posts, there's one type within that 4 that is all about documentation. And this is what I'm talking about here. And it's not just like documenting like, oh, here I am at this time and here's what I'm doing. Documentation requires testimony. And what is testimony? Like, we want to know how you navigate your life. So the power of testimony comes from Peter 3:15, which states, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. So even when I think to my own like fertility journey, you know what I mean? Like, I still have hope. And most people at the stage of where I'm at, like, man, I've been through, 5 rounds of IVF, 4 egg retrievals, and an embryo transfer. And that's a lot. And I still feel hopeful. Like, I still feel like I believe everything's going to work out. I believe that I'm going to be a biological mother. And that is hope. And so when someone asks me, what's the reason for that? Like, I'm prepared to answer that with my testimony. I'm prepared. The most powerful content, when we think about it, is that documented transformation of understanding why you have that hope or why you have the viewpoint that you have. And that comes from your story. That comes from your evidence. That comes from your proof that change is actually possible. And the Bible is built on testimony. The Bible is built on stories, real people, real encounters, real change and transformation. So when you think about creating content, your brand becomes powerful the moment that you stop asking yourself, what you think you should be posting, because no one can answer that for you, by the way. And instead, you start documenting your actual evolution in stories. And again, I'm more than honored to train you on this because it does feel overwhelming at times. I get that. But once you start documenting honestly, then we can dive into the 7th principle, which is how you show up for the people who are already watching you, the people in your audience. Because when we think about wisdom, when we think about truth, and when we think about testimony without the generosity, then we're just posting to post. It's like, again, we're going back to performance. So principle number 7, generosity is queen. And this is the principle that makes the difference between having like a following of people who, just racking up your following number, and then what I call an obsessed audience, which is a community. It's people who want to be led by you. It's a movement. So this principle is the make or break between those two. When I say generosity is queen, that's coming from Proverbs 11:25. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Give, give, give. Give first. Like give generously in your content without expecting immediate return. I coach so many women who are like, oh man, I was consistent for this amount of time and nothing's happening. And if I ask you the question, what did you give? What did you give in your content? If you can't immediately answer, then that's why. But again, we're not going to give with an expectant return either. We're giving for the sake of being generous. That's who we are as human beings. Tap into it. You have it inside of you. Biblical giving is both wisdom and resources. It creates this natural reciprocity, the law of reciprocity. And again, that's not through manipulation. Like you're not going to give just because you're like, well, I achieved the law of reciprocity. Now people are going to want to give back to me. That's not how this works. But you are giving through the way the world actually works. And people are going to follow leaders who actually invest in them first. So if they feel like they're being invested in by your wisdom or resources or whatever, they want to follow you. And generosity, I think people are very to actively do this online, but that leads us to the 8th principle. So the one that might most I'm tripping up over my words. Goodness, I've been talking for a long time, I feel like. I'm so happy if you're still here. Shout out to you. All right, the 8th principle, which is what I would say the most countercultural thing on this entire list of principles. Countercultural, which is, and I think that's a word, but you understand what I'm saying. Being bold is biblical. It's godly. Being bold is godly. Now, when I want to pause on this one for just a second, because I do think this addresses some of the reason why most female founders and brilliant women aren't showing up fully in their content or aren't showing up as themselves in their content. And so let me just say, like, being bold is biblical. That comes from Timothy 1:7. And it states, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." So when I say that, I would say being timid, like timidity, is not a virtue. You are not put here to be timid. And now I don't want you to hear the word bold and think I think this is very misunderstood. Like being bold doesn't mean go slander things and go just like splash your opinion about everything everywhere. That's not being bold either. That's actually the opposite. The Bible is full of people who stood alone with unpopular perspective. Again, not just like harsh opinions and hot takes, but you have bold thoughts. There's things inside of you that you feel a little afraid to say out loud because they might be the thing that someone actually needs to hear. And that responsibility is a little terrifying. And again, you say these things without apology. You say them without seeking permission because that type of energy is not biblical. So what I'm really talking about here is conviction. That is what boldness is to me. It's being convicted. And conviction, the good type of conviction where you are grounded in what you believe and what you say and confident in that, it can only come from one place. Being convicted can only come from one place, which brings us to principle number 9. And I genuinely believe that this one is the one that everything else in this list actually depends on. This should be number 1, but it's not on purpose. This is the one that I start with this inside of the Evolution Content Membership because, again, this is nothing else matters in this list without this one. So we're on principle number 9, which we're almost at the end of the 10 principles. Before I get to principle number 9, I want you to notice something. Every single one of these principles has actually pointed back to you, back to your identity, back to your internal world, your interior world. And this one makes all of that explicit. Like it is like, boom, it's in your face. So principle number 9 is know thyself above all. Know thyself above all. And this actually echoes biblical self-knowledge, and it comes from Proverbs 20:27. Know yourself and you will win all battles. Boom. Know yourself and you will win all battles. So when you think about creating content, when you think about teaching people or leading people, you cannot teach what you do not know about yourself. You cannot say things to other people that you do not know about yourself first. You cannot create content that is unique and authentic if you do not know yourself first. You cannot change people if you have not changed yourself first. You cannot build a brand on a foundation that you have not excavated. The first step is not visibility. Everyone wants visibility. You're skipping steps here. Visibility is actually not even a step at all. It's a byproduct. It's a positive consequence if you do it the right way, positive. But the first step is knowing who you are because you chose to see yourself. That is your values. That is your non-negotiables. That is your actual point of view, your actual world view. And the Bible actually calls this something. It calls it examining yourself. Corinthians 13:5. Examining yourself. You cannot lead people where you have not been yourself. And when you know yourself and you truly know yourself, something beautiful starts happening, which has happened to me in the last, I would say really strongly in the last year, but last couple years. When you know yourself, you stop looking at what everybody else is doing. Like you stop trying to compete. You stop trying to compete. You don't see people as competition because you understand principle number 10, which is our last one. And hopefully the most liberating, the most freeing idea in the entire episode so far, which is your perspective is the offer. And I want to read that again slowly. Your perspective is the offer. I think that's probably the one that most of us need to hear the most. And the one that we've probably been conditioned to believe the least. Not on purpose, but we've been conditioned to believe that the least. It's not talked about enough. Your perspective is the offer, which comes from Peter 4:10. Each of you, I love this, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others. So basically what that means is you were handed a gift. You've been created with a certain gift. Step number 1, locate that gift, find it, become obsessed with it, refine it, master it yourself. Step number 2, serve others with that gift. Whether you're passing it on or you're showing up for them, like whatever that looks like. Do not ask me what your gift is. I do not know. You have to do the work. That's the quote unquote, what I call the work. But at the end of the day, when we think about your perspective being the offer, then it leads us to like, okay, if that's true, and again, there's billions of people here, but no one has your unique gift, which means you're not competing with anyone else. No one else on this earth, on this planet, has the exact combination of your experience, your personality, and your perspective. Not a single soul. That is on purpose. The Bible does not call you to be like anybody else. It calls you to be fully yourself. So your weird quirks, the experiences that you have that are unconventional, even if it's like bad or good, it doesn't matter. Everything in between, your interesting voice, none of that is something that needs to be, it's not a liability. It's your offering. The world does not need you to try to be another version of someone else. And the more that you can stay on your path, the more that you can become who you are in all angles of life, the better off. The more enjoyable life is going to be. There's so much to be learned about you. Like think about living with someone else. Like obviously I live with my husband and we've been living together for 7 years maybe. I'm still getting to know him. Like I'm still like, it's interesting. And I'm curious about him. Like I'm always getting to know him. And I feel the same way about myself. Like we change, we evolve. And it's important to remember that you're in a relationship with yourself first and foremost. Get to know yourself so that you can become this full, unapologetic version of who you are. And it's extremely enjoyable. It's so fun. So 10 principles. Whew, we made it. Again, the meta part of everything that I just walked you through, which is the part that changes how you think about content creation entirely, is that, again, this is the lens that you are running your content through before you post it. And all of these principles did not come from my thought process on marketing or like getting more sales or getting more views. None of these principles came from a mentor, which I highly recommend getting a mentor. I think that's very important, but they didn't come from a mastermind that I was in. It didn't come from a business framework that somebody sold me. It came from my Bible. It came from a relationship with God that I built in the hardest seasons of my life and continue to build. And the reason I'm sharing them here in a podcast about visibility, about content, is because I actually believe that they're the most transferable, the most durable, and the most human principles that I've ever encountered for building something when it comes to brand and content and social media. This is when you look through the lens of these 10 principles, you will build a sustainable personal brand that lasts. And to add to that, one that matters. You don't have to be religious for these things to use these principles, for these things to work. You just have to be honest with yourself first, and then honest with the people watching you, and the rest follows. So we're going to end that here. I love you guys so much. And thank you again so much for being here. I get so excited to record these. I get so excited to read your messages and your comments and all the things. So I love you so much. I hope you have the best day ever, and I will see you next week. Mwah.